There's something truly special about Pokémon Mystery Dungeon. From the moment you wake up as a Pokémon, lost and confused, you're not just on an adventure. You're on a journey of self-discovery. Unlike the mainline games, which focus on battles and becoming a champion, Mystery Dungeon is about something deeper: friendship, sacrifice, and finding your place in a world where you don't belong. And yet, despite being a spin-off series, these games crafted some of the most emotional and unforgettable stories in Pokémon history. But how did they do it? Today, we're diving into the first two Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games, Rescue Team and Explorers, to explore how they perfected storytelling and left a lasting impact on the series. Before we even step into this world, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon does something no other Pokémon game dares to. It makes us question who we are. Instead of picking a starter from a professor's lab, we're faced with something more personal, a series of seemingly simple questions. Are we brave? Are we hasty? Do we believe in destiny? Unknowingly, we're shaping our role in this story before we have even begun. And when the test is over, we wake up different, no longer human. No professor, no Pokédex, just confusion and a world that feels both familiar and utterly foreign. But in this strange new reality, we are not alone. In Rescue Team, a worried voice calls out, shaking us awake in a sunlit clearing. In Explorers, the first thing we feel isn't just disorientation. It's the cold sensation of water, waves lapping at our body as we lie washed up on a quiet beach. And standing over us is our soon-to-be partner, a Pokémon with their own dreams, their own fears, their own reason for being here. Whether it's the timid hesitation of a Pokémon who's afraid to chase their dream of forming a rescue team, or the wide-eyed excitement of an explorer longing for adventure, our partner is more than just a sidekick. They are the emotional core of the entire experience. In a world where we don't belong, they're the first to believe in us. And in turn, we find something to fight for. Our journey as a rescue team does not begin with legendary battles or saving the world. It starts with a single plea for help. A frantic Butterfree, desperate to save her child lost in tiny woods. We're just two Pokémon with no experience, no reputation, and no idea what we're truly capable of. But we step forward anyway. We rescue Caterpie, and in that moment, something changes. We aren't just outsiders in this world anymore. We are needed. Then, another mission, a Diglett in danger, held captive by a raging Skarmory. Dugtrio, its father, is helpless, unable to reach it. Once again, we step up, not as heroes, but as two Pokémon willing to do what others cannot. And with each mission, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon establishes what it does best, making every act of kindness feel meaningful. These aren't just early game quests. They matter. They're personal. They teach us that being a rescue team isn't about strength. It's about heart. But in Explorers of Time and Darkness, our first mission isn't just about helping others. It's about finding the courage to chase a dream. Our partner, full of hope yet held back by self-doubt, clings to a small, mysterious stone, the relic fragment. To them, it's proof that they're meant for something greater. But before they can even act, reality strikes. Team Skull, a trio of cruel, scheming thugs, steals the fragment, mocking our partner's ambitions. And yet, we don't give up. Together, we track them down, battle through a treacherous dungeon, and take back what was stolen. And in that moment, something shifts, not just in the partner, but in us. This isn't just about recovering a treasure. It's about proving to ourselves that we belong in this world, that we are capable of more. Slowly but surely, we become something bigger. In Rescue Team, we build our own base, a home, a symbol of our growth. In Explorers, our partner, once too afraid to take the first step, finds the courage to join Wigglytuff's guild. These moments aren't just milestones, they're transformations. The beginning of something far greater than we ever expected. And from here, the stakes only grow. What makes this world feel alive isn't just the grand story. It's the Pokémon that inhabit it. Pokémon Square and Treasure Town aren't just pit stops between dungeons. They're thriving communities, each resident adding a layer of warmth and personality to the journey. The ever-friendly King Gaskin, who watches over our belongings like a protective mother. The Keclean brothers, always eager to provide supplies, but a terrifying force of nature if you dare steal from them. Duskull, the banker, managing the town's finances with eerie efficiency. And Marowak, the proud owner of a training dojo, ready to whip any explorer into shape. Even the bulletin boards tell their own stories. A lost Pokémon, desperate for help. A thief on the loose. A heartfelt request from one Pokémon to another. These aren't just randomized tasks. They are glimpses into the lives of those around us, reinforcing a world that feels lived in. But in Explorers of Time and Darkness, our journey is not just about towns, it's about the Guild. A place of camaraderie, training, and more often than not, chaos. Upon joining, we meet Pokémon from all walks of life, each with their own quirks, routines, and aspirations. And at the center of it all, Wigglytuff, the kind-hearted yet unpredictable guild master, and Chatot, his ever-frustrated, ever-loyal second-in-command. Every morning begins with an assembly, an attempt at order quickly overshadowed by the personalities in the room. Loudred's ER-splitting wake-up call, Sunflora's overdramatic retellings of events, oh my gosh, and Corfish's laid-back attitude, hey, that's rough, buddy. Even Diglett and Dugtrio play their part as the guild's sharp-eyed sentries, identifying Pokémon by their footprints alone. It's messy, it's loud, and it's perfect, because for the first time, we aren't just strangers in this world, we're part of something bigger. And then there's Bidoof, a clumsy, eager recruit who dreams of becoming a true explorer. At first, he seems like nothing more than comic relief, constantly fumbling over himself. But as the game progresses, we see his story unfold, his loneliness, his self-doubt, and his dream of proving himself. His journey mirrors our own, reinforcing one of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon's core themes, that anyone, no matter how small or overlooked, can become a hero. But not every Pokémon we meet is a friend. In Rescue Team, we face Team Meanies, Gengar, Medicham, and Ekans. They aren't just playground bullies. They're a constant shadow, always trying to shake our resolve, whispering doubts about our worth. But deep down, even they're struggling with their own demons, a truth that will come to light later in the game. Then there's Team Skull, the chaotic, antagonistic underdogs of Explorers of Time and Darkness. Unlike Team Meanies, their cruelty isn't just about malice, it's about survival. They mock us, sabotage us, and take what isn't theirs. But as the game progresses, we begin to see past their bravado. They too are just another struggling team trying to carve out a place in the world. And while they may be rivals, they also serve as a reminder. Not everyone gets a fair chance. What makes Pokémon Mystery Dungeon's world so immersive is that it never stays the same. As we grow, so does everything around us. Treasure Town flourishes. Pokémon recognize us. New opportunities arise. The world reacts to our presence, making it feel real, alive, and most importantly, worth saving. Because this isn't just a journey about us. It's about them, the Pokémon who call this place home. For all the warmth and wonder this world offers, an undeniable tension lingers beneath the surface. Something is wrong. In Red and Blue Rescue Team, it begins with a series of unexplained natural disasters. Earthquakes tearing through villages, floods swallowing entire regions, wildfires raging beyond control. Pokémon everywhere are frightened, and no one knows why. It's a slow, creeping dread, a sense that the very fabric of the world is beginning to unravel. In Explorers of Time and Darkness, the crisis is even more unsettling. Time itself is breaking. Waterfalls freeze mid-flow. Pokémon find themselves trapped in endless loops, and entire regions fall into eerie stillness. The laws of nature, once unquestionable, are no longer reliable. And yet, most Pokémon carry on, unaware of the true scale of what's happening. Only whispers and rumors hint at something far worse to come. In the face of these mounting disasters, we find hope in the form of true heroes. Team ACT, Alakazam, Charizard, and Tyranitar, the strongest, most renowned rescue team in the world. When they arrive on the scene, it feels like everything will be okay. Alakazam, wise and composed, assesses every situation with precision. Charizard, brimming with confidence, is eager to take on any challenge. Tyranitar, a walking force of destruction, is raw power made manifest. We admire them. We aspire to be like them. And in a world teetering on the edge, their presence is a beacon of hope. In Explorers, our idol isn't a team, but a single figure, Dusknoir, a mysterious traveler, cloaked in wisdom and authority. From the moment he arrives in Treasure Town, he commands respect. Pokémon flock to him, hanging onto his every word. He speaks with certainty about the state of the world, about the crisis unfolding beyond what most can see. And unlike us, novices still finding our place, he is someone who understands the bigger picture. He treats us with kindness, offers us guidance, and recognizes our potential. He is everything we hope to be. Despite everything, life goes on. Pokémon still go about their daily routines. Shops stay open, rescue teams take jobs, explorers seek treasure. But the cracks are showing. The disasters in rescue team grow more frequent. The distortions in explorers become harder to ignore. And for us, newcomers in this world, still finding our place, the weight of these mysteries grows heavier with every passing day. We don't yet know the full truth. We don't yet understand our role in all of this, but soon we will. Great storytelling isn't just about what happens. It's about how events unfold. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time and Darkness demonstrates this perfectly, drawing players into its world through carefully placed foreshadowing, mystery, and emotional stakes that make the mid-game unforgettable. One of the most brilliant storytelling tools introduced early on is the player's ability to glimpse the past and future by touching objects. This isn't just a mechanic. It's an immersive way to deliver crucial information while making the player feel like an active participant in the unfolding mystery. Instead of relying on cutscenes or lore dumps, the game integrates these visions naturally into the narrative. Take, for instance, the Drowsy incident. When Azurill goes missing, the player suddenly experiences a vision of the young Pokémon in distress. This moment is more than just a tutorial for the ability. It immediately raises questions. Why do we have these visions? Why does touching objects trigger them? By tying the mystery directly to the gameplay, the story ensures that every new revelation feels earned, not forced. This technique is used masterfully in the Waterfall Cave mission. What seems like a standard exploration task takes a turn when the player has another vision, this time revealing a hidden passage behind the waterfall. The brilliance of this moment lies in its execution. Instead of simply being told about a secret cave, the player experiences the revelation alongside their character. The twist is later played for humor when it's revealed that Wigglytuff, the eccentric guildmaster, had already discovered the location but completely forgot about it. This moment keeps the tension balanced with lightheartedness, ensuring the narrative remains engaging without becoming overly dramatic too soon. Meanwhile, the world itself builds tension in the background. Rumors spread about a mysterious thief stealing time gears, artifacts that, according to legend, maintain the flow of time. The partner wonders what might happen if one were removed, subtly foreshadowing the crisis to come. Rather than dumping exposition all at once, the game feeds the player bits and pieces of information, keeping curiosity high while reinforcing the sense that something larger is at play. The mystery deepens when the player and their partner encounter the Lake Guardians, Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf. Each of them guard a time gear, unaware of the role they play in the coming disaster. Uxie, the keeper of knowledge, erases memories to protect his lake's location, introducing an eerie sense of secrecy. Mesprit guards the lake of emotion, hinting at the deeper themes of the game. Azelf, representing willpower, ultimately stands in defiance as the crisis escalates. These encounters don't just introduce legendary Pokémon. They reinforce the themes of memory, identity, and choice, all of which will be critical later in the story. In Red and Blue Rescue Team, The mid-game tension is built through a different but equally compelling technique: misinformation and doubt. The story introduces the legend of Nine Tails, a tale of a human who callously abandoned their Gardevoir after she took a curse meant for them. The prophecy states that this selfish human would one day return as a Pokémon, and when they do, the world will fall into chaos. When Xatu, the enigmatic seer, confirms that the player is not of this world, the groundwork is laid for one of the game's most intense turning points. Gengar, ever the schemer, weaponizes this information to convince the Pokémon world that you are the cursed human from the legend. The world turns against you, and suddenly, you're not just a hero, you're a fugitive. This twist is storytelling at its finest. The player, who has spent the entire game rescuing Pokémon and proving their worth, is now forced into exile. The emotional weight of this moment is staggering because it directly contradicts the traditional hero's journey. Instead of being celebrated, you are hunted. Instead of rising to glory, you're forced to flee. And it all happens because of an unreliable narrator, Gengar, who manipulates the truth to his advantage. It's a masterclass in how perspective shapes a story. Back in Explorers, the mid-game tension is heightened through the introduction of Dusknoir. From the moment he appears, he is framed as a hero, wise, experienced, and deeply respected. The guild looks up to him. The partner idolizes him. Even the player is encouraged to trust him. This is where Mystery Dungeon plays one of its smartest storytelling tricks. It gives the audience a false sense of security. By the time Dusknoir becomes an integral part of the story, the player has no reason to doubt his intentions. His interactions are carefully crafted to seem genuine, his knowledge of the world's crisis invaluable. But behind this carefully constructed facade, there are tiny hints, subtle, almost imperceptible details that suggest something isn't quite right. Why does he know so much about the player's past? Why is he so determined to help them? The game doesn't give direct answers. It lets the player's unease build naturally. And then, when the moment is right, the mask drops. Dusknoir's betrayal is one of the most shocking moments in Pokémon history. Just as the player finally seems to have allies, just as the mystery appears to be unraveling, everything is turned upside down, being dragged toward the dimensional hole with no way to escape. As the guild and partner watch helplessly, it's a masterstroke of tension and emotional investment. In this instant, the game shatters the illusion of security, proving that no one is truly safe. The mid-game of both Rescue Team and Explorers is where the stakes truly begin to rise. But the real magic isn't in the events themselves. It's in how the game makes the player feel about them. By embedding the mystery into the gameplay, slowly unraveling the truth, and making the player question everything they know, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon sets the stage for one of the most powerful story twists in gaming history. A great story isn't just about how it begins. It's about how it all comes together in the final moments. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon perfects this by crafting an endgame that steadily raises the stakes, making every battle, every twist, and every revelation feel like the culmination of an epic journey. Red and Blue Rescue Team, a desperate flight, redemption, and a battle against fate. By the time the player reaches the late game of Rescue Team, they have already experienced betrayal, exile, and the overwhelming weight of the world turning against them. The same Pokémon they once admired, Team ACT, the most revered rescue team, now lead the hunt to track them down. With no choice but to flee, the player and their partner navigate treacherous landscapes, each one pushing them closer to their limits. The journey through Lapis Cave, then the scorching Mount Blaze, is grueling. Here, Moltres, the embodiment of fire's wrath, attacks, reinforcing the world's hostility toward the player. Survival is a battle, but even after escaping, the frozen peaks of Frosty Forest bring yet another obstacle. Articuno, who believes the player is to blame for the worsening natural disasters. The tension is at its peak. Legendary Pokémon, once regarded as divine forces, now stand as adversaries, enforcing the narrative that the player is unwelcome in this world. But then, an unexpected ally emerges, Absol, a lone figure who has sensed the world's growing imbalance. Absol intervenes in the fight, offering a rare moment of relief. This marks the beginning of the tide turning, as the player reaches Mount Freeze and finally comes face to face with the Nine Tails of Legend. The truth is revealed. While the prophecy is real, the player is not the cursed human from the past. For the first time in a long while, hope is restored. Returning home is bittersweet. Gengar, the instigator of the entire ordeal, is discredited, but the world's troubles are far from over. Natural disasters escalate, and Team ACT ventures into Magma Cavern to confront Groudon. When they do not return, a new rescue team, Blastoise, Octillery, and Golem, takes up the mission only to suffer the same fate. The message is clear: no one has been strong enough to stop Groudon, and so the responsibility falls on the player and their partner. Groudon is defeated, but the true cause of the world's imbalance is far more terrifying. Xatu, the enigmatic seer, announces that a falling star is descending upon the world, an impending cataclysm that threatens all life. The weight of destiny finally falls upon the player, revealed through Gardevoir's dream sequence. The player was always meant to be this world's savior, their memories of their past life erased to ensure their heart remained pure. With no time to hesitate, the player ascends Sky Tower, facing off against Rayquaza, the only Pokémon capable of destroying the meteor. The battle is ferocious, every moment a final test of all the strength and courage the player has gathered. When Rayquaza's Hyper Beam shatters the meteorite, victory is achieved and the world is saved. Explorers of Time and Darkness, a journey into the future and a battle to change fate. If Rescue Team builds tension through exile and redemption, Explorers takes an even darker approach, throwing the player into a dead world, a future without hope. After being betrayed by the seemingly heroic Dusknoir, the player and their partner are dragged into a ruined, frozen wasteland where time itself has stopped. This shift in setting is more than just a dramatic twist. It's a brilliant narrative tool that solidifies the consequences of failure. The world they see is the very future they are trying to prevent. The introduction of Primal Dialga elevates the stakes further. Unlike the traditional villain, Dialga isn't acting out of malice. It has been consumed by its desperation to maintain its own existence. This makes the antagonist not just powerful, but tragic, reinforcing Explorer's theme of fate versus free will. The world is broken, and its ruler is no longer a protector, but a force of destruction. But amidst the despair, there is still a light, Celebi. As an ally with knowledge of the past, Celebi aids the player and their partner in navigating the dangers of this bleak future. It is through Celebi's guidance that one of the game's most shocking revelations occurs. The player is the former partner of Grovyle, the very thief they once pursued. This revelation doesn't just alter the trajectory of the story. It redefines everything the player thought they knew about their role. The escape from the future is one of the most thrilling sequences in Pokémon Mystery Dungeon history. As Primal Dialga's forces close in, every step feels desperate, every moment borrowed time. The sense of urgency is perfectly paced, and when the player finally returns to the past, it's with a renewed sense of purpose. They are no longer just explorers, they're warriors fighting to rewrite history. From this point on, the game accelerates toward its climax. The time gears must be returned to Temporal Tower to prevent the future from solidifying into its doomed state. Grovyle makes the ultimate sacrifice to ensure the mission succeeds, leaving the player and their partner to ascend Temporal Tower alone. Each battle feels more intense, each moment more precious, as the truth of their journey weighs heavily upon them. At the peak of the tower, the final confrontation with Primal Dialga is nothing short of cinematic. The entire game has led to this moment, a battle not just for survival, but for the right to determine the fate of the world. When Dialga is finally subdued, time itself is restored, and the player has achieved the impossible. Why the endgame works so well. Both Rescue Team and Explorers deliver some of the most engaging endgames in the Pokémon franchise by ensuring that every moment builds upon the player's journey. The pacing is masterful. Each battle, each twist, and each emotional beat lands with precision. The stakes rise organically, creating tension not just through combat, but through the fear of failure, the weight of destiny, and the emotional investment in the world and its characters. These aren't just stories about saving the world. They're stories about redemption, sacrifice, and the courage to stand against impossible odds. By fully integrating gameplay with storytelling, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon doesn't just tell a tale. It immerses players in it, making every triumph and heartbreak feel deeply personal. And that is why, even years later, these games remain some of the greatest examples of storytelling in gaming history. A great story doesn't just end with victory. It lingers in the hearts of its audience, leaving an impact that lasts long after the final moments. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon achieves this by delivering some of the most emotional scenes in gaming history. Moments that don't just celebrate triumph, but remind us of what it costs to win. The bittersweet goodbye. After Rayquaza destroys the meteor and saves the world, the player should be able to breathe a sigh of relief. The journey has been grueling, the obstacles overwhelming, but the world is safe. And yet, instead of a celebration, a cruel truth is revealed. The player was never meant to stay. Gardevoir appears once more in a dream, revealing that with the balance of nature restored, the reason for the player's existence in the Pokémon world has come to an end. They were brought here to save it, but now that their purpose is fulfilled, they must return to their original world. A world where they were never a Pokémon, never a rescuer, never the hero their partner grew to love. As this reality sinks in, the player begins to vanish, dissolving into light. Their partner, who had been by their side through every hardship, watches in horror. The denial, the desperation, this wasn't supposed to happen. After everything they've been through together, how is this fair? The Pokémon world has been saved, but at the cost of losing the one who saved it. What follows is one of the most heartbreaking breakdowns in Pokémon history. The partner collapses into tears, unable to stop the inevitable. The game lingers in this moment. There's no quick fade to black, no easy resolution. Just grief. Raw, painful grief. For a game that built itself on bonds of friendship and trust, this ending is devastating, but also makes what follows all the more powerful. Because as the credits roll, as the world moves on, something happens. The player's voice calls out. Whether it's fate, sheer willpower, or the unbreakable bond with their partner, they return. In a moment of joy and disbelief, the player and their partner reunite, proving that their connection transcends even the rules of the world itself. A goodbye that feels permanent. If Rescue Team's ending was heartbreaking, Explorers takes it to another level. This time, the game doesn't just tell us that the player must disappear. It makes us feel the weight of inevitability from the very start. After the battle against Primal Dialga and the restoration of time, the player and their partner should be celebrating. The dark future has been erased, meaning that everything they fought for has come past. But then the realization sets in. If the doomed timeline no longer exists, then neither should the player. Unlike Rescue Team, where the farewell is sudden, Explorers lets the moment drag out, making every second unbearably painful. The player collapses as their form begins to fade, and their partner begs them to hold on. The lines of dialogue are filled with raw emotion, every word from the partner laced with desperation. They don't care about destiny, balance, or the laws of time. They just don't want to lose the person who changed their life. But there's no stopping it. The player vanishes, leaving behind only silence. And unlike in Rescue Team, there's no immediate sign of hope. The game lets the grief settle, forcing the player to sit with the devastation. What makes this moment even more powerful is how the world reacts. The partner doesn't just cry, they break. They wander aimlessly, unable to accept what's happened. The once bright and cheerful companion is now a hollow shell of themselves. The guild members try to comfort them, but there's no comfort to be had. This is where Explorers cements itself as one of the most emotional Pokémon games ever made. Because it doesn't just tell us that losing someone is painful, it shows us what that loss does to those left behind. And then, just when all hope seems lost, Dialga intervenes. Unlike Rayquaza, who saved the world out of duty, Dialga has witnessed the bond between the player and their partner. They see the pain that the loss has caused, the strength of the love and friendship that carried them through their journey. And so, in a rare moment of divine mercy, Dialga reverses fate itself, bringing the player back. The reunion is one of the most cathartic moments in gaming. The partner, lost in grief, suddenly hears a familiar voice. Their shock turns into overwhelming joy, and for the first time in what feels like forever, they run. The moment they lay eyes on the player again, they leap into their arms. No words needed, just the sheer relief of having them back. Why this ending works so well? The Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series understands something that most games don't. The strongest emotional moments don't come from just what happens, but how it affects the characters we love. Both Rescue Team and Explorers craft finales that aren't just about saving the world, but about what it means to say goodbye. The heartbreak of loss, the helplessness of fate, the raw emotional weight of a partner breaking down. These moments hit hard because they are earned. The game makes us care, makes us invest, and then, just when we think all is lost, it gives us hope. These endings remind us why storytelling in games matters. Because even after the world is saved, it's not the battle, the enemies, or even the victory that lingers in our minds. It's the bond between two Pokémon who face the impossible together and refuse to let even fate tear them apart. The post-game content in Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, Rescue Team, and Explorers is not just an afterthought. It's a natural extension of the story that deepens the themes of both games. Unlike mainline Pokémon games, where post-game content is often about battling stronger trainers or catching legendary Pokémon, Mystery Dungeon treats the post-game as the second act of its emotional journey. Both games build upon their main story, reinforcing their core messages about destiny, perseverance, and bonds that transcend time and space. There's thematic expansion in the post-game. Both Rescue Team and Explorers revolve around the player, a human who became a Pokémon, and their journey with their partner. While the main storylines conclude with the players saving the world, the post-games introduce a crucial question. What happens after the hero's journey? 1. The aftermath of a grand destiny. In Rescue Team, the player is originally sent back to the human world, fulfilling their mission and leaving their partner behind in one of the most heartbreaking moments in Pokémon history. But the post-game immediately subverts this loss. The player returns to the Pokémon world, showcasing the idea that even after a mission is complete, bonds don't just disappear. This continuation emphasizes that life doesn't stop after a singular act of heroism. The world keeps going, and there are still mysteries to uncover, friendships to strengthen, and adventures to experience. The post-game reveals that Kyogre, residing in the stormy sea, continues to embody the raw forces of nature, reminding the player that natural disasters are not simply resolved with one victory. Groudon and Rayquaza also reinforce this theme, with Rayquaza standing as a protector of the skies and Groudon representing the primal forces of the earth. The redemption arc of Gengar, which leads to an encounter with Ho-Oh, serves as a thematic conclusion to the idea that change and growth are always possible, even for those who have done wrong. Similarly, Explorers deals with the concept of moving forward after saving the world. Unlike Rescue Team, the protagonist never leaves, but instead, they face the challenges of adjusting to life beyond their world-saving mission. Their graduation from the guild and their shift to independent explorers symbolize growing beyond the structures that once defined them. But the emotional weight of the post-game is still deeply tied to the theme of separation. Just as the main game had the heartbreaking departure of the protagonist, the post-game has the bittersweet farewell of Manaphy and the resolution of the partner's grief over the player nearly disappearing. However, Explorers introduces a greater existential threat in the form of Palkia, who believes the protagonist's presence is distorting space itself. This direct confrontation with a legendary Pokémon enhances the post-game's weight, forcing the player to grapple with whether they truly belong in this world. The confrontation with Palkia transitions into the ultimate revelation that Darkrai was responsible for the events that led to the protagonist's transformation into a Pokémon. Unlike Rescue Team, where legendaries are more symbolic figures, Explorers integrates them directly into the narrative, making them key players in the existential crisis the protagonist faces. 2. Continuing the cycle of exploration. Both games emphasize that the journey never truly ends. In Rescue Team, the restoration of the Luminous Cave allows Pokémon to evolve again, signaling a new era of growth and change. Legendary Pokémon, like the legendary beasts, Mewtwo, and Deoxys further expand the world, reinforcing the idea that there will always be something more to discover. The confrontation with Mewtwo in particular serves as a test of strength and resilience, echoing the protagonist's own journey of self-discovery. Meanwhile, Explorers takes this further by introducing new layers of lore with the 7 treasures, Team Charm, and the hidden dungeons that house powerful legendaries like Giratina. These encounters add to the grandeur of the world, with Giratina in the Dark Crater symbolizing the lingering distortions caused by the time-space disruptions. This dungeon also serves as a connection to the theme of duality between the worlds, further solidified through Palkia and Darkrai's involvement. The continued presence of Kyogre, Heatran, and Regigigas emphasizes that even after the story's grand climax, the world continues to shift and evolve. The postgame also takes time to explore emotional stakes in smaller, personal ways. Azurill's Nightmare arc is a heartbreaking segment that ties directly into the idea that remnants of past traumas still linger, reinforcing the idea that saving the world doesn't mean everything is suddenly perfect. The protagonist and partner must still help those in need, showing that their journey was never about one grand moment of heroism, but about continual acts of kindness and bravery. Rescue Team focuses on legendaries as forces of nature. Kyogre, Ho-Oh, and others represent aspects of the world that exist beyond the protagonist's influence. Their inclusion reinforces the idea that the world is vast and mysterious, continuing to function regardless of the protagonist's journey. Explorers uses legendaries as direct narrative tools. Palkia, in particular, plays an active role in questioning the protagonist's place in the world, deepening the game's emotional weight. Darkrai's manipulation of time and space further ties these legendary encounters into the overarching themes of fate, existence, and the consequences of past actions. While Rescue Team and Explorers both maintain strong emotional storytelling, Explorers is undeniably heavier in its themes and execution. Rescue Team focuses more on the personal journey of returning and reaffirming bonds, while Explorers raises the stakes with philosophical questions about existence, destiny, and whether the protagonist truly belongs in this world. Rescue Team's emotional climax is in the joy of reunion and the satisfaction of seeing characters like Gengar seek redemption. Explorers pushes the emotional weight further, especially with the Darkrai arc, which forces the player to question if they were ever supposed to exist at all. The partner's breakdown in the post-game is one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the series, emphasizing how much their bond with the player means to them. Both games ultimately reinforce a core theme. Even after a mission is complete, the world continues, and so does the journey. But Explorers does so in a way that feels like a second climax, rather than a mere continuation, making it one of the most narratively ambitious Pokémon games ever. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon. Explorers of Sky takes the already rich world of Explorers of Time and Darkness and expands it further with its special episodes. Short, self-contained narratives that flesh out side characters and deepen the emotional themes of the main game. While not part of the core post-game, these stories act as windows into the world beyond the protagonist's journey, showcasing perspectives we wouldn't otherwise see. 1. Bidoof's Wish, a story of dreams and determination. Bidoof, often played for comic relief, gets a surprisingly touching backstory in this episode. We follow his early days at Wigglytuff's Guild, where he struggles with self-doubt and inferiority. When he learns about Jirachi, he sets out to wish for strength, only to realize that true strength comes from within. This story embodies one of Explorer's core messages. Growth isn't about being the strongest, but about persevering despite hardships. It also makes Bidoof's role in the main game feel even more meaningful. His unwavering faith in the player stems from his own experience of overcoming doubt. 2. Igglybuff the Prodigy, Wigglytuff's Origins. Wigglytuff, the eccentric but wise guild master, is one of the most beloved characters in the game. This episode gives us a glimpse into his childhood as Igglybuff, a naturally gifted but kind-hearted explorer. His journey with the bandit Armaldo explores themes of mentorship and the weight of choices. The story also hints at why Wigglytuff became so lenient and free-spirited, reinforcing that even the strongest figures had a past filled with struggles and learning. 3. Today's Oh My Gosh, Team Charm's mission. While more lighthearted, this episode expands on Team Charm, the trio of Lopunny, Medicham, and Gardevoir, and their role in the world. It further enriches the theme that the Pokémon world is filled with seasoned explorers beyond the protagonist's journey. More importantly, it adds depth to Sunflora, a character previously known for her bubbly personality, as she faces genuine danger and learns to overcome fear. 4. Here comes Team Charm, legends beyond the main story. Team Charm is portrayed as legendary explorers in the main game, and this episode allows players to witness their adventures firsthand. It builds on the Seven Treasures subplot, reinforcing the idea that the world is vast and filled with mysteries even beyond the protagonist's immediate story. More significantly, it establishes the group's past connection to Wigglytuff, tying different parts of the story together. 5. In the Future of Darkness, Grovyle and Dusknoir's final chapter. Arguably the most impactful of all the special episodes. This story follows Grovyle and Dusknoir in the ruined future after the protagonist disappears from their world. It is a tale of redemption, survival, and hope, as Grovyle, once a lone warrior, now fights alongside his former enemy, Dusknoir, to ensure a better future. The emotional weight of this episode is staggering. Seeing these characters struggle despite knowing their world is doomed highlights the selflessness of their sacrifices. It provides crucial closure to Grovyle's arc, making his farewell in the main game even more bittersweet. Why these stories matter? These special episodes aren't just fun extras. They serve an important narrative function. They make the world feel alive beyond the protagonist, showing that everyone has their own struggles, dreams, and journeys. They also reinforce the game's overarching themes: perseverance, redemption, self-discovery, and the bonds that tie people together. While the main story and post-game of Explorers of Sky already deliver a masterful emotional experience, these side stories add layers of depth, making this world one of the most immersive and heartfelt in Pokémon history. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon. Rescue Team and Explorers weren't just great spin-offs. They were masterclasses in storytelling, something the mainline Pokémon games have rarely achieved. Their narratives went beyond simple good versus evil conflicts, delving into themes of identity, destiny, sacrifice, and the bonds that transcend time and space. Both games crafted worlds that felt alive, where every Pokémon had its own motivations and struggles. The postgame wasn't just about catching legendaries. It was a second act that expanded on the themes of the main story, making the world feel bigger than the player's journey alone. Explorers of Sky pushed this even further, refining an already emotional experience with its special episodes, giving side characters depth, and delivering one of the most heart-wrenching yet satisfying endings in Pokémon history. But after these two entries, something changed. The Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series, much like the franchise itself, struggled to recapture this narrative magic. Later entries simplified gameplay, softened emotional stakes, and abandoned the deep storytelling that made Rescue Team and Explorers so special. The shift was clear. While these two games treated their players with respect, Later titles felt like they were afraid to challenge players with real stakes and deep themes. And that's why Rescue Team and Explorers still stand as the peak of Pokémon storytelling. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the brilliance of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss future explorations of Pokémon's best and worst storytelling moments. See you in the next adventure. If you made it to the end, why not support the channel by liking and subscribing? It really helps. Also, I just launched a new video series, Why It Sucks to Be Born as a Pokémon. If you love deep dives into the Pokémon world, you won't want to miss it. Check it out.